that's the fun of two truths and a lie. And I always use this one as one of my truths, and without fail, they always think it's a lie, but I swear to you, this is entirely true. It has been a gloomy, dreary, drizzly morning here in Dallas, and I love it because the temperature has dropped like 20 degrees. It's in the 70s, and I mean, that's worth not having the sun. In fact, it's kind of nice to get a break from the relentless Texas sun that we get in the summers. It rises so early and it sets so late, and the heat is just so oppressive sometimes. So this is just kind of a beautiful morning. It was raining too hard for me to do anything other than run Rosa down to the dog park this morning. So my plan for this morning was, for the early part of the morning, since I couldn't do a good walk with Rosa, was to work in the Google Doc for, this is a client project. He's working on a fantasy series and he was online today, and so we were both in the Google Doc. We have working together, developing the outline and fleshing out the series Bible and really jumping into the magic system and like working out the finer details. And it was really productive for about 2 hours. And then my plan was, okay, the rain stopped, so I'm gonna take Rosa on a nice long walk in the 75-degree weather, hallelujah, and come back and do at least another solid hour working in that document with him. But the moment I got back inside, I started to get, for the first time in like 5 years, I am getting one of those, I don't know if you call them a visual migraine or an aura migraine. I know this kind of like works different for various people and like what happens, but for me it's the same way every time, which is that, like, imagine you're staring at the tip of my finger. What you would see is a C shape like this. I don't know if I'm doing that backwards, maybe like this. And it's like a sort of glittery, sparkly, light fractured C, and it starts out really, really tiny, and then slowly over time it expands and expands out in my vision. And if I move where I'm looking, the C follows. So there's no, at least at this stage, there's no like actual migraine, like headache pain. It's just the visual thing, but it's like pretty much impossible for me to read anything, which means it's kind of impossible for me to write anything. And so I had to put that away for a while, and now I'm kind of trying to reconfigure how I want my day to go. It's been, like I said, like 5 years since I've had one of these, and if I recall, I've never gotten a migraine that comes with like extreme pain. I have some friends who get, when a migraine sets in, I mean, they're in bed for 24 hours. It's just completely debilitating, and I'm really grateful that's not what's going on. I mean, unless this is my first ever one, but I don't think so. What I do remember is that there's like some mild head, kind of light headachy feelings later in the afternoon, and mostly it just makes me feel tired, like visually tired. Does that make sense? I mean, even the C eventually expands until it's gone from my vision. Right now I can still see it like right here. It's about this size, and this is about half an hour in, so it's still got a ways to go, and then it leaves my vision, but my eyes feel tired. And obviously that is going to have an effect on what I can get done today. So my original plan, I still need to do some more work on this client's book. He went in and specifically did a lot of work on the magic system, and I want to go through and read everything he did and add my own ideas before I check that off my to-do list for today. But I wanted to work on nil. I wanted to spend most of this afternoon working on nil. My goal for today was just 1,000 words, but if I'm being honest, I was kind of hoping that I could get a little bit more on that today. I didn't work on it yesterday, which was, today's Sunday, but I was turning it over in my head, the scene that I'm in, and yeah, I'm ready to jump into it. But yeah, this is gonna make it just a little bit tricky, and knowing that I'm probably going to be feeling kind of tired and maybe have a little bit of a headache later. Oh, I feel like a baby complaining about this. So many people deal with significantly worse and they still manage to write. So I don't know. I'm just gonna try to figure out how I want to manage this today. Dictation might have to come to the rescue. One thing I'm thinking about doing is maybe I can dictate a zero draft summary of the rest of the scene that I know I left off in the middle of, and perhaps even the scene after that. And even if that's all I get done, that's going to make writing the first draft version of it tomorrow go so much faster. So that's an option. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we're just gonna have to see how things go. Maybe if I eat some food, that will make me feel better, and give me the strength to go on. Again, I feel like such a baby talking about this. If you know, I know so many of you guys who watch, because you've told me about it before, you're dealing with all kinds of things like chronic pain and other things that your body does to you or that, you know, that you've just learned to manage, and that includes writing and still being productive on the days where you want to write. I welcome all tips and advice in the comments below for me and for anybody else watching who, you know, maybe doesn't have to deal with that as frequently. So yeah, I don't know, I'm rambling. It's really hard for me to look at the camera right now because I like it, just this fuzzy, it's just so weird. So I'm gonna turn the camera off. We'll get some food and check back in later this afternoon and see how we can salvage this writing day. While I was cooking, I started thinking about times when I've had to write when I really was like really truly sick, like my body was pretty messed up, and I realized I had never told the story on this channel before. It is a story I have told all of my friends and pretty much all of my students because it is so unbelievable and yet it is true. I use it in writing workshops with younger kids especially. On the first day we will sometimes play two truths and a story as a icebreaker, because it gets them telling a story, making something up, and it's always fun to guess, you know, that's the fun of two truths and a lie. And I always use this one as one of my truths, and without fail they always think it's a lie, but I swear to you this is entirely true. In 2009, 2010, I lived in South Korea with my husband, and we taught ESL. I taught ESL we were at a Hagwon, which is an English speaking school, and I taught kindergarten in the mornings and elementary classes in the evenings. And I think I have mentioned this before, but that is when I wrote the first book that I ever actually finished and queried. Did not get an agent. I would work on it in little bits and pieces on my breaks, on my lunch break, before class, in between classes, and then every day when I got home I would make myself some dinner and then sit down and write until I had a total of 2,000 words for the day, no exceptions, and I eventually got a draft. And I think I've talked a little bit about that book. It was a YA science fiction. It was the one with like 6 points of view and it had no voice. I know I've talked about that in some videos before. And what I haven't mentioned was what that book was about. That book was about a pandemic. Which, side note, I have never gone back to read it since I gave up on finding an agent with it. So it's been a decade, and man, I really should reread it just to laugh at what past me probably thought living through a pandemic would look like and how wrong I was. I can't even remember those details about it. But what I do remember is the virus that I created, because it was part of the sci-fi plot that this was like a brand new virus. Oh man, just saying this out loud is like freaking me out a little bit. So I thought back then that, I still think this, the best way to create a new disease in a book for fiction is to first research diseases and then like model yours after something. Look at symptoms of certain different types of diseases, and use those symptoms to create your own disease. That sounds so wrong. To make it seem more realistic. And I can't remember why exactly this is what I chose, but I chose to model my virus after tuberculosis. So when I really started working on this book in earnest, it was pretty much right when we arrived in Korea, which was September of 2009. And I just started drafting, and it was kind of went in tandem with my new teaching schedule, and it was going great. And so yeah, I started in September, and I had a draft of that book by December, which was my goal. I set a goal for myself that I was going to have a finished book for the first time ever by the holiday break, because naive, silly us, we thought that we would actually have a real holiday break, and we were planning on going to Japan. So I'm going through the school year, I'm working on this draft, it's coming along. I had so much fun with that book. I mean, there were definitely some frustrating moments. It was my very first draft, but mostly I was having a great time with it. And I was deep in the tuberculosis research. I was really doing my best to make this virus, this pandemic, seem realistic. As fall turns to winter, it's funny thinking back on all of this now. As I'm sure you probably know, in Korea and in many countries in Asia, it's common to wear masks in the winter, just because masks in general have always been a great way to, slow the spread of the flu and other viruses. And I did not wear one, even though I was riding the subway a lot, and even though I was, teaching kindergarten. I mean, a kid sneezed in my mouth one day. Like, I will never forget that. It wasn't like I didn't want to wear a mask. I don't even remember making a choice about it. I just never bothered getting one because it wasn't a habit that I had, even though I observed that most people wore masks. And good Lord, if there is any point in time in my entire life where I wish I could go back and tell past Michelle one single thing, it would be that fall and winter to wear a mask when I was out in public, because it might have saved me from everything that happened next. Sometime in early November, I got a cold, and this is totally normal for me. I mean, again, I was teaching kindergarten, plus, you go to a new country and things are unfamiliar, but your body isn't prepared, and I mean, it was gonna happen. I got a cold, everybody at the school had a cold. It didn't seem like that big a deal, but it wouldn't go away, and then it started to get worse. And in my defense, and this is not a defense, I was 29, and I had just come from, I never called in sick. That was just not something, I feel terrible about it now, but back when I was a band director in my early 20s, like out of college, when I called in sick, I've talked about this before too, I think, it meant inconveniencing so many people that I didn't want to do it. I had to be like really incapacitated to call in sick. Yeah, I didn't think at all about spreading whatever I had to other. It was terribly inconsiderate. Like, please don't be afraid to call in sick if you need to. Especially if you teach kids. Again, I just get so frustrated with myself when I think about all of this in the past. But I was feeling worse and worse, and I was like, it got to a point where I was like, I'm just powering through till winter break. I will power through till winter break and everything will be better. And during all of this, I was still working on that book. I was making myself do everything every day. I was just working myself to the bone. It was ridiculous. Again, I wish I could just go reach through the past and slap myself in the face, but I will say this, when it got really bad, when it became clear that I didn't just have a cold, but I had some sort of flu and it was bad, I was going to a clinic. I went to several clinics. What I didn't know, and I found out after the fact, is that at least back then, or at least in the area I lived in, clinics were something you only went to for something really, really mild and easy. If you were kind of seriously ill, you would go to a hospital. And maybe that sounds kind of like duh, but the way I was feeling at the time, like for the flu in the United States, I would go to a hospital. I wouldn't go to an ER. I would just go to a doctor. So I just didn't quite understand that at the point I was at, the clinic wasn't the appropriate thing for me to be going to. So anyway, progressing closer and closer to winter break, I get to the point where I can't like sleep at night because lying flat on my back, I feel like I'm drowning. I wake up breathing like really shallow and I can't take deep breaths anymore. And one of the side effects, I'm sure you probably know, of tuberculosis is that you start to cough up blood. And I used that in my book. That was one of the early indicators of the virus I created in my book for the pandemic in that story. And one of the characters, one of the 6 point of view characters, she had it and she was keeping it a secret and like hiding bloody tissues and things like that. And I'm sure you can guess where this is going. I started to cough up blood. And it was a little bit at first, and then I'm just not gonna go into the gory details with you guys, but suffice it to say, I coughed up stuff that I didn't know my body was capable of producing. I had a teacher, a Korean teacher from my school, come to the clinic with me to properly translate to the doctor, this is what my phlegm looks like, this is what it feels like, please help me. And again, because I should have gone to a hospital and I didn't know it, the doctor gave me some drugs that did absolutely nothing, and things just got worse and worse. So yeah, I mean, I guess I don't need to make a whole meal of this, but long story short, I finished that semester at school, which was, I don't know how I did it. I really wish I hadn't done it. I exposed so many people. I don't like to think about it. But the next day, that night I couldn't sleep. I had to get in a chair and sit up straight because I literally couldn't breathe otherwise. And Josh called the director at our school and they came and took me to a hospital finally. And I found out that I had super severe pneumonia. Like my right lung had completely collapsed, and tested positive for tuberculosis. And it was the weirdest. Especially, I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. I was quarantined, and I remember very vividly, especially the first night I was there, was so surreal because they had gone in and like, again, I feel like that it's like my badge of honor kind of that I went through this, that I get to share this story, but I don't want to gross you out too much. But there were tubes going straight through me. I have a scar from it, into my lungs, and like draining goo. All kinds of IVs hooked up to me, and nurses coming in to check on me that first night, especially like every hour. So it was like laying in the dark, kind of half propped up, and just in this weird state because I had finished my book literally just a few days before I checked into the hospital. And I was just lost in this weird delusional world of like, I gave myself tuberculosis. I researched it so much and I wrote it so much, and I specifically wrote this one character who was getting this disease and experiencing the symptoms, and now I have it. It was the weirdest, trippiest experience I have ever been through, and it still freaks me out for a lot of reasons to think back on it. It took months to recover from that. I mean, I lost my job because, you know, you can't teach children when you have TB and because I was in no shape to do it. Like just my lung being collapsed alone took a lot of like physical therapy and, you know, months of just getting stronger and being able to breathe normally again. It took practice. So I was in bed for a while, and yeah, that's a whole other story. But that's that's the sickest I've ever been when I forced myself to write. I don't recommend it. Please don't do that. Please take care of yourself. Self-care, as weird as that term has gotten and is kind of like co-opted as it's gotten in a way that I don't like lately. It did not really exist as a phrase back then, and it's something I probably needed to hear. We don't always need to power through everything. But yeah, that is, hand to God, that is a true story of how I wrote myself into getting tuberculosis. Anyway, so I am set up in bed and it's almost 2 o'clock, and you know, the weird circle is, or C kind of shape is pretty much gone. I've just got a little bit of like vision fatigue. Is that a thing? My eyes just feel tired. Kind of like the way they do when you're up way too late or you wake up way too early. I just kind of have that right now, even though I'm not actually physically tired at all. So I'm just gonna sit here in bed and like do some little word sprints with Nil, and hopefully we can get some words in today and it not be a total loss. So I did a 10-minute sprint and then took a little break because I was having some, not headache, but just kind of like pressure. Vision was still a little weird. Did another 10-minute sprint, took another break, and then I did a third 10-minute sprint, and when the timer went off, I just kept going because I was like rolling downhill towards the end of a chapter, and I just wanted to get there, you know? And when it was all said and done, I wrote a little over 1,200 words today so far, and it is 4:25, so, you know, all things considered, I am pretty pleased with that. You gonna come up, Rosette? I'm still feeling a little just kind of foggy, but definitely an improvement from this morning, and honestly, overall, much better than I thought this afternoon would go. As for, oh hi, where I am in the book, so the scene I just finished was the catalyst. So now there are technically three scenes left before I get to Act 2. If you do 2 debate scenes, which I know, again, I'm talking about the Save the Cat model here. 2 debate scenes, there doesn't have to be 2. And then the break into 2 scene. I did have a really important realization. Hi, what are you doing? Oh, thanks. What is it? I don't know what's going on here, but, no. Okay. Are you comfortable now? She just can't let me have the spotlight. Something, what was I gonna say? Oh, I had a realization when I was wrapping up the chapter, which is that, just a way to, I struggle with debate scenes because it's just the fact that they're called debate, and I always, even though I know this isn't the case, I always just picture 2 scenes of the character going, I don't know, do I really want to go on this quest or go on this mission, when the reader knows, of course, they're going to do it. And that's not really what the debate scene is. For one thing, the debate scene can actually be the character preparing to do the thing, to go on the mission, to go on the quest, or to do whatever, you know, is going to be the break into 2. I did realize that something that I thought was going to happen for Nil in the catalyst scene was a little too easy, and also I just thought of a much better option. So she has a little mini mission to go on in the next debate scene that will be really fun to write, I think, and that's a necessary step in her preparation for the break into 2. But there's also going to be some pondering because she doesn't actually want to do the thing that she has been kind of ordered to do, and so she's going to find another way around it. And that kind of planning is going to be the second part of my 2 debate scenes. I'm just very aware as I'm saying all of this that if you have never read Save the Cat before, it probably sounds like complete nonsense. As for the quality of the first draft, what I'm finding is that I can tell when I'm writing parts of these scenes, there's a lot of clunkiness. This scene, for example, had a lot of just straight up explanatory dialogue, you know, just relaying information to the main character and the reader in a way that I am going to have to finesse a lot later. A lot of things, I'm experimenting with a lot of things. There are certain elements to this story that honestly I might get rid of completely once I have the first draft. I don't know yet whether they're actually important or not. For example, one thing that is happening currently in the story is in the city where Nil lives, there is a fog, a really thick, kind of creepy fog that drifts in occasionally, and meteorologists can't explain it, and no one knows why it's happening. There's no like scientific explanation. And in my head, I know what it is and why it's there, but I'm not sure if it's really necessary or if it's just another little thing that I'm writing because I think it's cool to describe and it's a fun little mystery. I don't know if it matters, if that makes sense. So there's a few things like that. Little elements, world building things that I'm sneaking in there and just kind of playing with, and there's a very good chance I will end up ultimately cutting some of them, but whatever, it's a first draft, and what is a first draft if not a playground on which we can just do whatever we want, right? That's how it should be. So that's where this is right now. That is probably all I'm going to do on this book today, but tomorrow, Tuesday, my goal is to get at least another 1,000 words, and Wednesday is going to be another flow state day. I'm excited to see how much I can get done then, especially because I really think that with only 3 scenes left to go till Act 2, I can definitely get to Act 2 by the end of Wednesday, which would be awesome. So we will see if that is what happens. I will share everything with you guys on this Friday's vlog, of course, and please update me. Let me know how everything is going for you. How are your projects coming along? And please tell me how you work, how you write when you're sick, and have you ever had an experience where you found you crossed the line and you pushed yourself too hard? You know, please make me feel better about how poorly I handled my health crisis 10 years ago. I know I'm not alone here, right? Please let me know I'm not alone here. I will see you guys on Friday with another vlog, and I hope you're having a wonderful week. Bye.